Welcome back. Now, the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research has published its yearly statistics on electricity generation in South Africa. The 2022 report includes information on power cuts and the availability of energy in general. The government has touted an energy mix that included coal, nuclear and renewables. To discuss this further, I am joined by the CSIR's Principal Engineer, Warrick Pierce. Mr. Pierce, thank you very much for your time. Very sad to be speaking to you just after it's been announced that we have been grey-listed as a country, a beautiful one at that. But I'm interested in the statistics that you have there in terms of our energy mix in South Africa. Obviously, coal still dominates, but you're also saying in your report that renewable energy has increased in 2022.
Yeah, not much of an increase. So we went from sort of around about 6.5% to 7% of the electricity came from renewable energy. So only 7% of our electricity generated last year, so 2022, came from green origins.
And, you know, of course, when you talk about the fact that we went from 6.5% to 7%, are you talking about government, installing solar and appointing all these IPPs, for instance, under different bid windows, or are you talking about even households that are moving to renewable energy?
That's a very good point. So no, that excludes embedded generation, so behind the meter. So for instance, rooftop PV, like you've mentioned there. This is only looking at utility scale. So these are the IPPs that were in the REAP program.
Now, in terms of coal, the 80% that you're talking about, surely this is a clear indication of what different government ministers have been talking about in terms of just energy transition and trying to show South Africans that we're not the type of country that can quickly move to that. It has to be gradual.
Agreed, yeah, and especially in terms of the electricity crisis that we're experiencing right now, no one is saying reduce the amount of electricity coming from coal. We would happily increase the amount that's coming from coal, and that's one of the reasons why we in this crisis is because the output from the coal power stations is steadily decreasing.
How's our energy, you call it energy availability factor? I don't even know why I'm bringing this question up, because to us as South Africans, it looks like there's none.
So the energy availability factor is just a proxy or metric for saying what is the functionality of the Eskom fleet. So obviously 100% would be saying that the Eskom fleet, all those megawatts are available all the time, and obviously that's just not practical or ever going to happen. But generally you're looking at sort of around about 85%, which would be international norms, or 80%, and we were above 90%, maybe 15 years ago, but since then it's been steadily declining, and now we're getting closer to 50%. So our energy availability factor last year, so the annual average was 58%. So first time it's dropped under 60%.
So I assume there's a possibility that if things are not sorted this year, 2023 will look worse than 2022 in terms of our EAF?
Correct. So just on load shedding, we note that 2022 was the worst year for load shedding, December the worst month ever recorded, and just December on its own was more than previous years in collective. But the other not very nice fact or non-fun fact is that of the load shedding experience last year, 80% was in the second half of the year. So from July onwards, 80% of the load shedding occurred. And we haven't seen an improvement in January and February. So yeah, unfortunately, 2023 is so far set to surpass last year.
And I think what's worse right now is the reality that we are on stage 6 more often than it has ever happened. The first time it happened was in 2019, and now it's happening even more often. I mean, we've been on stage 6 load shedding, for instance, right now since Sunday.
Correct. So it's not just how often we're getting load shedding, the intensity or the stage is increasing. In previous years, on average, it was mostly stage 2. Last year, 2022, it's most of the time it was on stage 4. And unfortunately, we're seeing in 2023 that might even increase to above stage 4.
When you look at it, any solution coming from the CSIR in terms of especially our EAF? I mean, if you look at the fact that we had 90% EAF 15 years ago, and it's been declining since then, it doesn't look like anyone that we've put in positions to make those changes has really done anything. That's at least how it looks to a layman like myself.
So Eskom, I mean, so that EAS is Eskom's energy availability factor. So it's their fleet, and they're in a tough situation. They've got sort of keep the lights on at all costs, which then means that there might be some delayed maintenance or inadequate maintenance, which means that you have an increase in your breakdowns, so your unplanned maintenance, and that's what we're seeing is a shift of general increasing of unplanned maintenance. So breakdowns are just increasing. So, and we've got the aging fleet. So there aren't really too many metrics saying that the energy availability factor would be increasing anytime soon.
Well, Mr. Pierce, thank you very much for your time, and thank you for giving us those statistics. That was Council for Scientific and Industrial Research, that's the CSIR. He's a principal engineer there, Warrick Pierce.